Okay, shalom, boker tov. So, hi everybody. It's Riva Amuna. We're recording from Tzfat. It is Thursday, December 30th? 31st? Oh, it's Erev. And it is the 16th, Pet Zayin, Tevet, Hatavshin Pei Aleph. And this is a class on Parashat Vayechi, but very specifically on the Shema. The Shema, as we know, is our national mantra, you could say. It is. We'll talk about what is a mantra, and why is this our mantra. I do just want to take 1 minute for everybody just to bring your presence to here and connecting our breath and our body. Because when we take just a moment even to have consciousness that we're about to receive Hashem's light, Hashem's wisdom, Hashem's word, and make ourselves a vessel to receive. So the awareness of being a vessel is to come open and empty to the greatest of our ability, and receptive and soft and vulnerable. So we are going to be learning some Rabbi Nachman today from the Likutei Halachot, written down, of course, by Rabbi Nassan, and also some Torah from the Ishbitzer, the Mea Shiloach. There's several Ishbitzer Rebbes. This is the Mea Shiloach. So we'll begin with a piece from the Ishbitzer. And very, very quick, B'ezrat Hashem. I do just want to connect this light and this learning to my Rebbe, Rabbi Shlomo ben Naftali V'Pesia, Nishmato Eden, and my Rav, Harav Elazar Mordechai ben Gedaliahu Aharon, the Avi Mori Ephraim ben Meir Eliyahu, and all of the holy masters in their bodies and not in their bodies. Okay. Parashat Vayechi. Vayechi Yaakov, ita b'Masechet Avot. So it says it's brought down in the Masechet Avot. Im ein bina ein da'at. Okay, so it's brought down in the Gemara. It says, if there's no bina, then there's no da'at. So we need to understand what's bina and what's da'at, right? And how are they connected? Unfortunately, there's so much B'ezrat Hashem to share and give over that we could do, a whole class just on this little piece, but this is actually just going to be a part of setting the foundation for our understanding of the Shema today. Please, God. So it says, Im ein bina ein da'at. So we have to understand, we'll start by saying, Lefi Kabbalah, what is bina? So bina is connected to the left side of the brain. And I don't want to get too complicated, but just to say there are different deot in terms of if the left brain is connected to the right arm and vice versa, which science seems to support now. But to be simple right now, we're just going to say the left brain, okay? And it is the feminine, of course, connected to Leah. And the chush, or the sense, the felt sense that is connected to Bina is listening, okay? Hearing, listening. And Da'at, as we know, is connection, and it is experiential connection, right? In other words, it's an experience of connection, as opposed to, like we gave an example many times, like we could read a book about giving birth, and we could watch a video, and we could talk to people, but until we actually give birth, we don't have da'at about birth, right? Until we actually have the experience. So da'at is very deep connection and connecting to an experience, connecting to something through experiencing it firsthand, right? Instead of reading about it or something, there's still that space in between, right? The da'at is to intimately know. Any person here who's married intimately knows what marriage is. Any person who's had a baby intimately knows what birth is, right? And it becomes such an intimate experience that part of da'at is to also be able to give it over the experience. In other words, sometimes we sort of vaguely understand something, but we couldn't explain it to someone else. So that means we don't have da'at around it, because da'at is it's become such a part of us that we then could also share it and speak it out and connect it and pass it forward. Okay, so now we're saying im ein bina ein da'at. So part of the way we could read this is to read it if there is not deep listening, then there cannot be a deep connection, a deep intimate connection. So now we're going to understand what is bina, what is listening. So the first thing we notice is that it's on the feminine or receptive side of the body. In other words, the left column, right? In Kabbalah, we always have the right, which is masculine, and the left, which is feminine. And by the way, we don't mean male and female. We mean masculine and feminine, as in a plus charge and a negative charge. And the central column, which is always about synthesis, right? Synthesizing and harmonizing and balancing the two polar extremes of a plus charge and a negative charge. And this is literally physically in our body, that we are electric beings. So we literally have energy flowing through us with a positive charge and a negative charge. We have parts of our body that emit and further the flow of energy, and we have parts of our body that their job is receptive, and it's to hold blood or fluids or energy, right? And we have the dance and the parts of our body that harmonize and connect and keep this flow of giver and receiver going, right? And of course, anything that's happening on the level of our body is also happening on the level of the grand body of the whole world, the whole universe, right? The micro and the macro is always reflective of one another in a way of it's holographic, it's like fractals. Okay, in other words, the small map on the tiniest level is the same map that we use when we expand it. Okay, and everything contains everything else. So if we notice that bina is on the left side of the body, then we understand that listening is a receptive act, right? So to listen means to ingest something, to receive something, and to ingest it into one's being, right? And integrate it into one's being. So if we're just hearing, but we're not taking it in and it's having it touch us, affect us, reshape us, right? Rebalance us, that's not what we mean by bina. You'll notice in the word bina is the same letters as the word yibaneh or yivneh, right? To build. So there's something about the act of deeply listening that builds both the speaker and the listener. What is it building? It's building da'at, connection, intimacy, relationship. So now we understand, now we can plug in and understand more this line, im ein bina ein da'at. If there is no deep listening in any relationship, there cannot be an intimate and deep connection, an experience of true oneness. Okay? So now this is as true as the relationship between me and my body and my own godly soul, right? The chelek Elohai mima'al, my own godly soul, as it is between me and another human being, or me and any creation in front of me, or I in front of them. Okay, so we're just setting, this is just the foundation. This is just the foundation. Okay. So now, the Ishbitzer continues. Bina hainu haklalim shel dat Torah. So now the Ishbitzer says a little slightly different, and he says, Bina in this case is also talking about the general principles, the general borders of Da'at Torah. What is Da'at Torah? It is the connection wisdom. How to know, how to connect to anything, any person, any place, any time, any space in a way that will reveal the divine light and reveal God, whose name is also Shalom. Shalom is one of God's names. So when we're talking about revealing God somewhere, we're revealing the tiferet, the harmony, the shalom, the balance, the health, right? So now it says Bina is this beautiful vessel and container which is holding connection wisdom, Da'at Torah. Hainu ta'amei hadvarim, כמו שנמצא כמה פעמים זה הכלל. Now, the Ishbitzer is going even one step deeper, and he's saying here, what does it mean, Da'at Torah, the connection wisdom? It says ta'amei hadvarim, in other words, the deepest taste, what we call pnimiyut Torah, the inner Torah. In other words, we can do something, and we can, what Shlomo, my Rebbe, used to say, we can knock it off, like you knock off mincha, God forbid. Like, I've done it, I checked my V on the list, right? That's one way of connection, like, right, I knocked it off, God forbid. Or then there's something called ta'amei hamitzvot, which then we use, it's so beautiful, because it gets translated colloquially as the reason for whatever we're doing. But the actual literal Hebrew is ta'am, what gives it taste? What makes it juicy? What makes it spicy, sweet, yummy, right? Like in our connection, this mitzvah, or this piece of Torah. So he says, Ve'al yodei haklal yodea la'adam kama pratim. And he says, if we know the reason behind something and the general principle of what it's doing, then we're also able to apply it on a personal level to each situation in our life, right? And we're able to take it into the individual level. And it's always this dance between prat and klal, right? Like, it's never to violate either one. It's never that we're so connected to klal or community that we lose prat, and it's never that we're so focused on prat that we don't see what else is happening, right, on a communal level. Now he says, V'da'at hainu hapratim. So now the Ishbitzer says, okay, so what's da'at? Da'at is the little details. So now we're saying Bina is the container, right? And da'at is the little intimate details, like only you know. If you're living with somebody, only you know how they butter their toast, whatever, you know? Because it's these little intimate details that the more intimate you are with somebody, the more the little nuances, the subtlest little, their face looks like this and not like that, right? And that's true intimacy. There's the container of intimacy, okay, we have connection, and then there's the tiny little subtle vibrations. Okay, so now he says, V'zeh perush im ein bina ein da'at. So now the Ishbitzer says, this is one of the interpretations, one of the ways to understand that if there's no bina, then there's no da'at, hainu, that is to say, im ein hadam yodea haklal, shehu ta'am hadavar, eino yochol lada'at haprat. So now he's saying something, mamish, so deep, and he says, if we don't know the general principle and the general idea and the space and the holding and the receiving, then how could we possibly get to the little tiny intimate details? Yeah, does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay, so he says, Ki miprat echad lo yodea prat hasheni. He says, because if you know one tiny little detail of something, right, like zooming in, you don't see the whole picture. So essentially what he's laying the foundation for here is this connection between big picture and detail, big picture and detail, and how we cannot have one without the other, and we cannot have relationship without both. Okay? This is just setting the foundation. And the same is true in the opposite. He says you could say the same thing going the opposite way, right? And again, another way to read this is if there's no intimate, deep connection, there's no deep, intimate listening happening. Hainu, that is to say, in timtza lemor eda haklal velo itzarech lilmod haprat. So if a person wants to say, yeah, I know in general what my partner needs, right? I know in general, right? I don't need to know the details. That's not going to be the deepest connection. We all know that, right? על זה אמרו, אם אין דעת, היינו שלא יהיו מסודרים אצלך הפרטים, right? In other words, it's true love shows up in the details, in the slightest shift in vibration and movement, and right? ולא תדע שורש הכלל. He says, if you don't know the details in your relationship with God, with yourself, with someone else, it's not you, God forbid, but we don't have then true connection, right? We'll say that again. לא תדע שורש הכלל לאמיתו, איך יוכל להסתעף. So he's saying like this. Sorry, we'll go back and say, שלא יהיו מסודרים אצלך הפרטים, right? If we don't know the intimate details, לא תדע שורש הכלל לאמיתו. So then we won't really know it on a klal level. It's good. It's a mikvah. Shlomo used to say that crying, mamish, when you cry, tears of, there's a crying that closes us and distances us from God, and there's a crying that opens us and makes space for God. And he would always say a crying that opens us is mamish to bathe yourself in a mikvah. וזהו ויחי, היינו, שורש החיים, והוא הכלל של כל דבר. He says, okay, so now we're saying we need both. It's always the dance. By the way, I hope you're hearing that this is going to be the Yud Ke Vav Ke Elokeinu, Yud Ke Vav Ke, right? Prat, klal, right? That's where we're going with this, okay? And to do this dance. And also on a sound level, and in a relationship level, all of it, right? So he's saying here, היינו, שורש החיים, והוא הכלל של כל דבר. He says, ויחי, that's the name of this parsha, the life force. What's the life force? He says, the life force, that's the general principle of everything, that it has a life force flowing through it, right? It has the one flowing through it. We'll talk about later, what is the one, who is the one, right? But first of all, to know that every creation has the general principle. It doesn't matter if they're a plant or an ant. Oh, didn't mean to rhyme. It has life, or a wall, or a fish, right? It has a claw, that there is life, chi, prana, chiyut. It doesn't matter what, it's all the same, right? Flowing through it. V'Yaakov haynu da'at hu haprat. Okay, and it says Yaakov Avinu, he's the detail. We're going to get there in a second. Like I was saying, we could do a whole class on this, but I'm actually only wanting to use this as a foundation. Ki Yaakov mechuna neged zer anpin, haynu shashem yitbarach mashgiach al kol parat, al kol dvarim hanitzrechim lo, afilu katan shebektanim. Now, if you remember Yaakov goes back for the little jug of oil, right? Hakada katan imeshemesh. He was a millionaire. A billionaire. He didn't need to go back. But what he was able to do is zoom out and zoom in, zoom out and zoom in. Relate to God as the flow of sound and light, right? That's very general on a certain level though, right? And then also know that this flow of sound and light, which is God is not mitzamtzem to that, obviously, but kiviyachol, in other words, as if we could say and limit God to being sound and light, right? Just for the sake of our class. Because we can't talk about what God is, but also to know that sound and light is mushkach, is mashkiach, is guiding, sounding, directing, moving through, moving within, moving without, every tiny detail. That means to eat inside every cell, inside every atom, this perfect flow of divine sound and light. So to the inside, to the outside, inside, and this is what he experienced in his life. This is the going up and down of the ladder. And by the ladder, and again, we're going to talk so much today about light and sound. One of the ideas of the ladder is musical sounds and toning. It's going up and down a scale of music, tones and vibrations, and knowing, like, again, some of you know, some of you don't know. Thank God I've had the great, amazing, beautiful honor of birthing many babies into the world. And one of the things that we talk about in the pre-birthing classes is toning, and toning into the womb to open, right? So that instead of these kind of sounds like ah, where the energy goes up, we literally find resonance with the womb, and go oh, till we reach like a, and you can feel it vibrating and opening it. Okay, that was the piece from the Ishbitzer. So now we'll jump to another little piece from the Ishbitzer, and he says, Vayikra Yaakov el banav. So Yaakov calls his sons to him. And of course, if anybody is not familiar with the Parsha, this is when he's getting ready to mistalek, right? Although, again, the Gemara says Yaakov Avinu never died, so we can understand that on many levels. But on the pshat level, he was getting ready to his soul to leave his body, and he calls all of his sons around him. And we all know, why was he calling them? He wanted to reveal to them the ketz, right? The end of days. What does it mean when we say the end of days? Not the date that Mashiach was going to come. Maybe also. He was going to reveal to them the final revelation of Yud Ke Vav Ke Hu HaElokim. How to put it together, how to unfold that, how to reveal it, how to receive that revelation. Okay, so, Vayikra Yaakov el banav, Bamidrash Tanchuma Vayechi, Ekra leElokim elyon leEl gomer alai. So it says, first of all, according to Midrash Tanchuma, it says the first thing that he did was to call leElokim elyon leEl gomer alai. Now, why is he calling to Hashem here, and why is he calling to Elokim, which is a name implying some din, some separation, right? It's not Yud Kei Vav Kei, it's Elokim. So he says, Ha'inyan bazeh ki ka'asher ratza Yaakov Avinu levarech et banav, that when Yaakov wanted to come and bless his sons, haya mesupak im tzarich levarech otam. He wasn't sure if he could bless them. Why was he not sure he could bless them? Does anyone have an idea? Why? Yes, exactly. Why? Because a bracha only rests in what vessel? Peace, the blessing of shalom. It can only be when all the neshamas are open vessels and open to one another and coming together in a collective level that we can have Yud Kei Vav Kei Hu HaElokim, because it's essentially revealing the unified sound light as it flows into the many. But it's the one sound light current as it flows and flows through and connects the many. Ken, but he wasn't sure. Why was he not sure? It's so beautiful. Nachon. Thank you. Mechamat shetza'aruhu b'mechirat Yosef. Because, first of all, because they mamish put him in sorrow, what happened with Yosef. So the Ishbitzer, I think, is revealing something so that he's not sure his own heart is at peace with them. So can he bless them? Right? That's the first thing going on here. Can he bless them if his own heart is not shalem, right, with what happened? And he says he had to check she'eino nokem v'notel v'chulei. He had to check his own heart that he wasn't holding resentment and didn't want nekama or revenge against them. So deep, so deep. Lachen ne'emar vayikra. So it says that he called, vayikra koreh. And it says, koreh lashon tza'aka. He was actually crying out. Like Hashem, open me. I don't know what to do here, right? V'kaveh belev shehaya chola einav v'libo lemarom. Right, so it says, what was this cry? He was opening himself, calling from within his depths and creating a kav, creating an open channel through him, up through him, and up to Hashem to get clarity about, right, about to open a space beyond the block, beyond some place inside of him, right, that he wasn't sure. Am I supposed to move beyond that block? Am I not supposed to move beyond the block? Am I supposed to let the love flow, right? He wasn't sure. So he creates this open channel between him and Hashem, and more between him and Hashem. I mean, not more, but it says kaveh balev, and he creates this connection and a kav. By the way, the word kav, we were talking before about crying and mikvah. The word mikvah has in it kav, to reconnect. Mem kuf vav he, mikvah, and also lekaveh, mekaveh, to hope for what? To hope for reconnection.
Wow.
Right? Where we get the word, our national anthem, tikva. Again, it has the word in it, kav, kuf vav, hope. It's the hope for what? Hope to be reconnected. Hope for that any kind of healing has to do with reconnection. Well, to be clear, connecting that which is in harmony to be connected and disconnecting those ties that brought us out of harmony. Because some connections, right, that's what we say in the bracha about going to the bathroom, right? Chalulim, chalulim, right? That opening what needs to be open and closing what needs to be closed, right? Shehaya tole einav v'libo lemarom ve'et asher yasim Hashem befiv oto yomar. And he says, this is what he says. And by the way, this is take-home Torah. This is pocket Torah. It means when we're in a relationship, we're in a situation, and mamish, we don't know. Do I forgive the person? Do I not forgive the person? Like, what is God's will in this? Because maybe I need to stay away from them. Maybe I need to protect myself. Maybe they're not good for me. Or maybe I need to mamish find their good points and open the gates between us. I don't know. Right? So he says here, he opened within himself and he said, I am a channel, and whatever words you put in my mouth, that's what I'm going to say. I'm just completely, I'm like, I am your voice in this world, God. There's no more any me, right? I'm your voice. You say what you want to say, God. You do what you want to do, because in my human da'at, I don't know. Okay. V'zeh kavanat hamidrash, sheizkir zeh hapasuk. And this is why the Midrash brings out this pasuk, shebikesh me Hashem sheyigmor ba'ado, that he requested Hashem, this is your baby. You do what you want to do here, okay? You finish it the way you want it to be finished. Velo nomar, and he didn't say trila lashon bracha. He didn't begin by jumping into giving them a bracha, right? It says first he called, and it says he's calling to God. כי עוד לא היה מבורר אצלו מה יאמר להם. Because he doesn't know what he's going to say. He doesn't know what to say. He doesn't know what God's will is here. And more, it's so deep, because understand, he's saying, even if I set my ego aside here, I don't know what you want. Do you want me to set my ego aside? Are these the people you're choosing to send the bracha through? I don't know. Okay. אבל משה רבנו, but משה רבנו, עליו השלום, התחיל תכף. He jumps right in, right? וזאת הברכה. This is the bracha, right? We're talking about when Moshe Rabbeinu starts to give a bracha and says to Am Yisrael, וזאת הברכה, right? He says, Moshe jumps right in. כי מילת וזאת מורה על זה שהיו כל הדברים מבוררים אצלו. Miyad kshi'itchil ledaber. It says, why does Moshe start with vizot? It says, because before he even begins to give the bracha, it's totally clear to him what he's going to say. it's all masudar in his mind. He knows, right? He knows where to go with it. וביעקב לא נאמר וזאת, רק אחר כל הברכות שרק אז, אחר כל הדברים היו אצלו מבוררים. It says, but Yaakov, we only get a zot after he's done the whole talich of bracha, right? And only then it says v'zot, because only then it becomes clear to who? To himself. Shekol birchotav hema meHashem yitbarach velo mikodem. Only after the words flow through him does it become clear to him that all the words were Hashem's and that this is Hashem's ratzon, but it wasn't clear to him before.
Moshe or Yaakov?
Yaakov. Moshe was clear to him, so he jumps right in.
Clear to him, it was from him or was from
clear
Hashem?
That was God's will, clear what to say, right? והנה, תחילה נתן השם דברים של קינטור בפיו, לקנטר הגימל שבטים הראשונים. So now we can understand why Yaakov begins with criticism, right? The first three shvatim, he's calling them to task. Reuven and Shimon and Levi, right? But he says, you understand, this wasn't from some ego place inside of him. This is because he made himself so empty. I am your voice, God. If you want to, you use me in whatever way. Well, I don't like the word use, but you partner with me, right? In any way that I can be of devoted service. Atzino. Beautiful.
Can I ask a question? I don't want to...
Yes, of course.
How much can we trust ourselves when I'm in that place, and usually before I do something meaningful, especially when it comes to words, emotional things, that I ask God, like, show me the words, show me, how much can I trust myself that after I say that, I can just go with it? Because the observer can... We're so human and we're so invested, that once if I genuinely say, God, I really just want to be a vessel, and I know that what you do is the best, and then whatever comes out, that I can really trust myself, that was what he wants, and not really what I want.
It's a beautiful question. I'm going to trust that Hashem is going to put the right words in my mouth right now, and I don't even mean that as a joke. I mean it mamish seriously. And just in the hashgacha pratis of okay, so 3 things, not in any particular order, just the order that they come out. One thing is that the Rebbe, meaning Menachem Mendel ben Chana Lady Yitzhak, the Rebbe always taught Dvarim hayotzim min halev, so the words that flow from the heart, nichnasim alev hashomea, they penetrate the heart of the listener, upoel pu'ulatam, and they begin movement, they begin to move things and restore things and heal things. And the Rebbe would say, if that doesn't happen, then in general, I don't understand this myself, I'm just giving over the words of the tzaddikim, that the block is more likely to be on the side of the speaker than the listener. Again, this is not true to my experience. I've had the experience of speaking to people and feeling that it's their heart that's blocked. But the Rebbe says, no. If your heart is clean and genuine and open, now the Rebbe also says, po'el pu'ulatam. That means it may not be instantaneous. It may be 10 years later that suddenly the person has an aha moment and was like, oh my gosh, I remember. Oh, I didn't understand it then, but now, Gavalto, I understand it. Right? It doesn't say it's instant. That's one thing. The second thing I'm going to say is that my Rav, Rav Koenig, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, told me a story about Rabbeinu, Rabbi Nachman, and Rabbi Nassan. Oh, I just got this rush. Sorry, missing him. It's almost his yortzeit, Rav Kenig's yortzeit. It's Kaf Daled Tevet. Sorry, Kaf Gimel. Kaf Daled is the Alter Rebbe. Kaf Gimel. Nishmato Yada Eden. So he told me this story, and he said the short line of the story, because we haven't even gotten to Shema, and honestly, I want so much really to focus on the Shema, and this was all meant to be an introduction. So to say, but it's all Hashgacha Pratis, it's all perfect. But he said that Rabbi Nachman said to Rabbi Nassan, it's not enough that you have emunah in God, Nassan. It's not enough. You have to have emunah in God, and you have to have emunah in yourself. So I think the answer is, well, I'll say one more piece. So I was watching a beautiful documentary last night, which I sent to many of you. I hope you got it. And it's called Down to Earth. So beautiful. And it's about exploring all these different spiritual healers in the world, and kind of what, the common thread. And there was this beautiful shaman, and he was saying that, and I think this resonates with what you're saying. And he was saying that even the best tzaddik, master, spiritual master, shaman, healer, doctor, naturopath, it doesn't matter what you want to call it, right? Cannot heal a person without the person's emunah in getting healed, right? Because the emunah creates an opening and a vessel for the healing energy to come in. We could do a whole class, and we'll just say briefly, emunah, faith and belief, and we find in it the word ima, to birth something, right, and to gestate something, which is the healing, right, and the reconnection, and also umanut, craftsmanship, to create, to be an artist. If you sit down with a piece of marble, a lump of clay, paint, it doesn't matter. There is a faith, because otherwise you could ruin $1 million piece of marble, right? There's a faith that your hands will be guided, that your intuitive sense will direct you. So it's that same faith that once we've made the prayer, but you see, he didn't do it on his own. He created a vessel of emunah that I am yours, God, and I'm in alignment with you, and now I'm going to have faith that what comes through me is your will. Okay. So he says, okay. והנה מתחילת נתן השם דברים של קנטור בפיו. Okay, so it says he begins by criticizing the first three shvatim. כי צריך, he didn't know, right? צריך לנקום ולנטור, וכשהגיע לשבט יהודה, אז הראהו השם מן השמיים להעביר על מידותיו. It says, whatever was in his heart, he was holding it, Yaakov, against Reuven, against Shimon, against Levi. But when he reaches Yehudah, he feels that Hashem tells him, now let it go. Now just be in love. Past is past. Who else got the opening when it came to Yehudah?
Binyamin.
Who? What? Who?
Binyamin.
Who else had a kataleg in her heart for Reuven, Shimon, Levi, and she reaches Yehudah and something opened? Leah. So you see now, we're coming full circle. Something that was implanted in the pregnancies already, something that she was holding, came through to them, and now in this parsha it's getting healed. It's finally coming full circle. Right? And now, and Yaakov was told it's healed. And if Leah's hizivug, it means if it's healed for Yaakov, it's also healed for Leah. Right? There was something there in their union itself that came through to the children. But now he said the piece, it got realigned, right? And now, okay, from this point on, it's just connection and flow. כי באותיות יהודה נמצא שם הוויה יתברך. Right? Because we learned that in the name Yehuda itself, it's Yud K Vav K, with the Dalid in there for the doorway. Yeah, clear what I mean by that? Yud and Hey and a Vav, and then a Dalid, and then another Hey. So it's Yud K Vav K with a door. And what we're all about here, connecting the Yud K Vav K and the Elohim. So he begins in Elohim energy, he's in din with them. But then when it comes to Yehuda, he finds the doorway into Rachamim. Okay? והדלת שבשמו מרמז על פי ועל זה אביט אל עוני ונחה רוח וחרד על דבריי. Okay, Bekitzu, he's saying it's the end of the din. Now he's careful with his words. Hainu, shemevin, he understands. Ki ein lo mitzad atzmo klum. And what does it say? It wasn't just on God's end. It's that he was so attuned and so in alignment that when it reached the place of Yehuda, also Yaakov in himself felt, I'm free, I'm open, I'm not holding anything in my heart anymore. There's no kitug, there's no, right? כדאיתא דלת לקית, על כן לא היה בזה מקום לכל שום כעס ורוגז כלל. Right? It says he's not, now remember we're in Tevet right now. This is the fixing of anger, right? So we're learning how to work with anger. He was angry around Reuben, Shimon, and Levi. And God, so to speak, Kivyachol, was angry. What is anger always showing us, though? Remember from the Tevet class, that the Gedalim and the Gvulot are out of whack. They're out of balance, right? And with all of those cases, Reuven, he moved his father's bed. He broke the boundaries. It was not appropriate. Shimon and Levi, they broke the boundaries with Shem, right? It was me'ala me'ever, their response, right? So now that he set them back in alignment of Gvulot, now he's free to love. When we set our borders, we know our true borders, what we can and can't give, what we can and can't say, what we can and can't do. We're actually, it holds us then, this is the Bina part, it holds us then to allow love to flow through, because we're not stuck through fear or resentment, or can I trust them, can I not trust them, I don't know, last time they did that, right? So there has to be a clarity that the borders the way they were before, that doesn't work. So can we get in resonance for new borders, a new land, right? Eretz Yisrael is called, by the way, in case you're wondering what that land is called, right? Where we have love and clear borders. Yud Ke Vav Ke Hu HaElokim. They can coexist, right? So we have, again, the one, sound and light, it's all one, flowing through the many. And that becomes the connective force, but the many are still individuals in an individual vessel with individual space needs and time needs and border needs, right? And it's this holding of that together. So he says, וכאשר נפתח ביהודה מידות הרחמים, and so this midah of compassion opened up when it came to Yehuda, and within Yehuda Daled, within the Delet of Yehuda, נתגבר גם על שאר השבטים ונכללו כולן בברכה. Then it went through Yehuda's Daled, and it spread out, and it included all of the Shvatim and the Bracha, including Reuven and Shimon and Levi, because they were tzadikim gemurim. Their borders were off, so they had to be brought back into balance, right? But once they were balanced, their soul, their intention, their beautiful midot, everything was beautiful, but they needed to learn borders, right? Okay, believe it or not, that was an introduction, and I think that we do not have time for what I was going to say. So Can I just get a time check of where we are and what time we have or don't have? I don't know what time it is.
It's 12:15.
Oh, beautiful. Okay, so a dear friend of mine gave me a sefer before Rosh Hashanah this year, and it's from the Biala Rebbe, and it's actually called Sefer HaChaim, which is, I loved that I got the Sefer HaChaim on Rosh Hashanah of this year. And I keep it next to my bed. It's very, very dear and precious to me. And I just randomly opened it, I think it was last week. It might have been this week. It's sort of all in flow right now. I don't even know anymore. But I opened to this piece that I just went, oh, when I saw this piece. And it said that the Biala Rebbe, he didn't make this up. I'm sorry, I can't give the makor. I didn't write it down. But he, of course, gives the makor, the source. And he says that the war of Gog uMagog, in other words, this final struggle, battle, right, before Mashiach consciousness is birthed and Mashiach, the person, is revealed. It says the final battle will take place on the level of tefillah, on the level of prayer. It's actually a battle of prayer. I never saw this before, and so it was really astonishing to me. And he said, and what will be the battle? The battle will be how difficult it will be for a Jew to say the Shema.
Oh.
Whoa! I'm sorry. Whoa.
The battle will be how difficult it will be for a Jew to say the Shema. That is, according to the Biala Rebbe, the battle of Gog uMagog. The final mind, the final healing and rebalancing of the mind and heart and body and soul and all of it, right? So when I saw that, I thought, well, then we need to really know what the Shema is. Why will it become so difficult to say that and to experience that, right? And then, right, if we understand what the code is from the beginning, we understand what can make us in resistance to that space, right? I do believe that I am going to probably leave here and at some time today or tonight do another Zoom class on this, because honest to God, it's a whole class in itself, and chaval. It's a very important class, because when I saw that, I just thought, oh my goodness, he's literally just given us the key to unlocking Geula. The key is to understand Shema, to say Shema, not just say it, but say it with intention and birth that into the world and keep doing it no matter what is going on inside or outside of us. He gave us the key. It's mamish gewalt. Okay, so we'll do a little bit until we can't do more. So when I saw that, I thought, oh wow, I need to look into Rabbeinu and see what does he say about Kriyat Shema, right? Rabbi Nachman. So we are in, yeah, me too. I also was like, wow. So it's the Kutei Halachot, and it's Chelik Aleph or Achaim, and it's the halachas of Kriyat Shema. We're in Halacha Daled, Seif Tet Zayin. Okay. Now again, this is a whole class on Kriyat Shema, but we'll do what we can get to, okay. And the rest is up to Hashem. Just looking at my notes quickly. This is, so stay tuned. I'm going to do a class on it today or tonight for sure. Please God, with Hashem's help. So let me just begin by saying this one small piece here. No, I'll do it out of Rabbeinu. Okay, sorry. Thanks for the guidance. Okay. Okay, so he's referring to a previous Torah. He says, Sheyud bet tevot shebeshma uvaruch Shem, hem keneged yud bet shivtei ka. So now first of all, Rabbeinu is giving us a little clue. And he says, if we count the words from the beginning of Shema until the end of Baruch Shem Kibod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed, it's 12 words. Okay, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad Baruch Shem Kibod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Okay, so it's a code. It's a code holding the 12 Shvatim.
Whoa.
It's a code holding the 12 months. That each Shevet is connected to a time and a space. And it's therefore an energy. It's a code holding the 12 permutations of the Shem Havaya, right? We know that the Shem Yud K Vav K, each month it comes down in a different order, right? In other words, it comes like Nisan is the only time it comes down Yud and then Hey and then Vav and then Hey in a direct order. And other months it comes down backwards, forwards. The front part is, I hope that's clear what I'm saying to the people who are watching it. Okay? Yud Bet is a code for 12 hours of the day and 12 hours of the night. And you can hear that all these things are opposites, right? Right? In other words, there's 6 months essentially, right, sort of, right, of cold and 6 months of heat. I mean, we break it down into 4, but, right? It's a code for how we camped in the Midbar. Yeah, can you say that in English for the, it's also the 12 faculties, spiritual tools of our soul. Okay, so this 12 is so deeply, it's such a deep, deep code. So let's just begin by that. Okay, so now he says, and to be clear, right? Okay, so now he says, Ki ikar kriyat shema, so the essence of kriyat shema, nitgale al yedei shneim asar shivteka, is revealed through whatever this code is of the joining together of the 12 tribes, right? And also just to say, we can go on and on, but to remember when Kriyat Yamsuf opened, when Yamsuf opened, the Red Sea, it also opened into 12 pathways. There's also 12 nuschot, or 12 different styles and formations of prayer, of tefillah, because we each have a particular song, an energetic vibration that we need to feel in resonance for our words to flow, our heart to open, our energy to flow, and be in the state of what we call zivug, unity, union, right? We're talking now union up this way with God, and union this way out to our fellow beings. So it's a sound current, to be clear. We'll get there more, right? But in the inside of Shema, it's about Shema. It's about listening to the sound current. Okay? Listening to the vibration. And he says, okay, so he says, I can hardly get it out, I'm so excited. He says, okay, Nitgale al yedei shnei masar shivteka im Yaakov avihem. So if you add the 12 tribes and Yaakov, how much do you get? Which is the gematria of? Echad. 1 and? Yes, and love. This is the love code, baby. We're cracking the love code. Okay? And of course, that is the last word of the first line of Shema. And the way that we say it, right? Echad. Okay? But not to halachas, whatever, okay? Lots of halachas around it, because it's very important. Because remember we said, and the daled. Now remember we said, connection must take place not only in a general, but the details matter. It matters. It sounds stupid, but it matters if your husband likes an omelet or scrambled eggs. It matters. It matters because it shows more and more attunement to knowing the person and sharing intimacy, right? And getting it just so. It's so subtle, right? It's so subtle. There's a big connection, and then there's the subtle tuning, right? Like a master musician. A master musician knows how to tune. By the way, when I was growing up, I was studying piano and violin, and I studied piano with a master, Madame Faye, God bless her soul of blessed memory. And part of my training with her, which I lost, I do not have this really anymore, I don't think, but she would have me stand on the other side of the room, and she would play a note, and I would have to identify the note without looking at the piano. Right? She would just like play, like, what's that? And I would have to know, that's a la, that's a mi, that's a do, whatever, to fine tune my hearing to the point, right, where it's not just what I'm seeing, it's what I'm hearing. Okay, so now we're getting to the 13. כמו שאמר חז"ל, like Chazal say in Bereshit Rabbah, Perek Tzadik Chet, al Perek Bereshit Memtet. ויקרא יעקב לבניו וכולי. So Yaakov calls to his sons, etc. שביקש לגלות את הקץ. This is what we said already, right? He's calling them because he wants to reveal when are these two names, Yud Ke Vav Ke Hua Elokim, going to find connection and flow and synthesis, right? And he says, Amar Shema yesh bachem v'chulei. He says, but you know, and then it was right. It says the Shechina was mistaleket, right? It was hidden from him, and he got scared in that moment, and he thought, maybe it's being hidden from me. Why was he scared? He said, Mamish, maybe it's never going to happen. He says, maybe it's never going to happen. Maybe there's been so much pain and hatred and disconnection and harm and wounding of ourselves and each other that it's not fixable. That was his fear. Because the Shechina left. And that was his fear of, like, maybe humankind has reached such a point. I mean, to me, I have chills saying this, because isn't this so relevant to today, right? It's like we have a fear, like maybe mamish, the darkness and the wounding and the abuse and the predatory nature and the victimhood and the preying on each other, and maybe it's just reached a point where we're carrying for thousands of years so much wounding and woundedness that maybe it's not, I know this isn't a word, but it is now, healable, right? Patru ve'amru. They, the Shvatim, my whole body has chills. Just like, they got this download, right? Patru ve'amru. They, the Shvatim, turn to him and they say, Shema Yisrael. Now, who's the Yisrael they're talking to here? Literally their father, right? Literally their father. And why do they call him Yisrael and not Yaakov? Because he's the master of darkness. He's the master of broken relationships, of trickery, of thievery, of lack of integrity. Not him, but having to walk that journey between all the barbed wire and all the kotzim and all the, right? And they've witnessed it, and they've seen this, and they've seen their own falls, right? Their own mistakes, right? We never said Yehuda was perfect. We just said what? He was willing to come back into alignment. He was willing to be humble, to listen. Yehuda, his mama is Leah, Bina. He's willing to listen where he was out of tune, where he played wrong notes, and go back and correct it, right? So they say to him, Shema Yisrael, listen, our Father, right? Listen, Yisrael. And Yisrael is also what? Shir El, God's song. God's song might have, it never has wrong notes. That's what they're saying to him. You of all people, our Father, know that God's song does not have wrong notes. It might have dissonance, it might have lack of harmony at certain points, but it's all part of one symphony. And by the way, as a student of music, I can tell you, when you are writing and composing a piece of music, it is the dissonance that moves the piece forward, and then you have resolution at the end of the piece. Otherwise, you don't have a piece of music. In the same way, in a piece of literature, if there's no protagonist, there's no friction, there's no challenge or crisis to work through, and it's a very boring story. Two people met, they liked each other, they fell in love, the end. Nothing happened to them. Nobody would go to see that movie, right?
Great movie.
Great movie. It was great. It lasted for 1 minute. Okay, so he says, so they're saying, Father, Shema Yisrael, Yud Kei Vav Kei, Elokeinu. So God as the light and sound current, right? That is your God, is flowing through all of us and reuniting us back into you and your path and your service and your vision and this place which is also what? Israel Yashar El, the straight path to God. Always that middle path, right? The path of harmony, attunement, alignment, health. You can say all these words. Truth, beauty, right? In the body, it's the heart as protected by the lungs. But when we go into the Mishkan, we'll talk more about specifically, please God. Okay. Kashem she'ein belibcha ela echad. So they're saying to this, they're saying, Father, just as you in your heart only have echad, so that you're Yaakov and you're Yisrael, but you're one person, right? And just as you have one Yashar El, one connected path from your Ekev, from your heel, to your Yisrael, to your Rosh, right? Kach ein belibenu ele echad. So too, do we also only have echad, one in our hearts, right? And by the way, again, echad as the gematria, as the numerical value of one, but in Hebrew it's also for the word ahava, love. It's one, but it's a collective one. It's the one where everybody remains an individual and yet finds a harmony path, a peace path, to be in resonance where no song is drowning out the other person's song, right? It's very, imagine for a moment how beautiful and rare this is. Imagine if you have a neighbor and they're playing rap and you're playing a piece of Mozart. And what we're saying is that there's going to be some way where both people have their music and yet they can happen at the same time and find resonance together. That it's going to be a new vessel that's going to be able to hold so much difference and yet so much connection. Okay, so he says, Patach Yaakov ve'amar. And so when they said that to him, what was his response? Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. He receives it. That's his response. Right? Wow, like, blessed is Hashem who creates, right? Baruch, blessed, right? Shem, the name, Kavod Malchuto, that is in Malchut. Malchut is Elohim, it's diversity. Blessed is this beautiful God, this beautiful light and sound current who can flow through things that are so opposite, creatures that are so different, and their needs are so different, and their styles and their ways and their languages are so different, and still it's one unified field, it's one unified love, one unified wisdom, right? And that's his answer. Okay. Nimtza, so we find she'ikar kri'at shema nitgale al yedei Yaakov u'banav shekalul mehem. And now he says, so part of our code in uncoding Shema is to know that the Shema is the energetic sound, so it's the mantra of the 12 collective souls, like you have on your thing, the sound tones of your name. The Shema is the sound tones of all 12 tribes with Yaakov Israel. It's the sound tone of what it sounds like to join the sound tones of the 12 tribes and Yaakov together, which equals 13, which is the sound tones of Echad and Ahava. So there's the words as we're reading them, and there is the sound as we're saying it. And the ikar of Shema is to close your eyes when you are saying it, not look at the text inside. Close your eyes and cover your eyes. Again, I think that might have to wait for tonight or this afternoon's class, but just to know that. The essence of the Shema is to say it and to listen to yourself. Listen to yourself. Do you get it? The essence of coming home is to go inside and listen to God flowing within you. Okay? Shehem Yud, and we'll have a whole class, but I'm just planting you little seeds because in case you don't get to this other class, just little seeds. When do we say the Shema? When do we say it? We say it at the transitional times, when day is coming and when night is coming. We say it in the birthing transitional moments between duality and crossing dimensions, when we might forget that it's all one because we get stuck in night, right? We say it, what's another transition we say it as? When someone's dying. We say Shema with them, right?
Dangerous
We
times.
say it as we're about to go to bed because we may not wake up, God forbid, in the morning, right? We say it the times when we might forget. Yes. Now, Rabbeinu also says, if you're ever in a tempting, you're facing a test, and you don't think you're going to pass the test, right? You're tempted by something, whether it's to do something, to say something, to act on something, right? To think something even.
Does it have to be bad?
And well, it's a test. It's not bad or good. It's a test, right? In other words, you're being tested, right? Specifically, Rabbeinu says, if you're being tested in the area of sexuality, Rabbeinu says, say Shema, and it will create a protective force field of God's unity and oneness. It will remind your own soul, you don't want to be out of alignment, do you? Ouch. That doesn't feel good. Because what are we craving when we're craving sexual union? We're actually craving connection and intimacy. But if we go looking for connection and intimacy in a place that's going to break us, we're certainly not going to get what we're looking for. So Rabbeinu says, remind yourself what you're in essence truly looking for is wholeness and unity and oneness and connection. So if you find yourself facing a test of sexuality that's not actually in alignment and not actually going to bring you in alignment, say the Shema. The sound vibrations itself will bring you back into oneness, unity, harmony, that sexuality is meant to create unity, not breaking. Okay, almost done. And he says, Shehem Yud Bet Shivtei Ka. These are the 12 tribes of Hashem. Hainu Kanal, as we mentioned before. Ki Yud Bet Tevot Shebekriyat Shema Hem Keneged Yud Bet Shivtei Ka. Okay, he says that again. Now, I don't know myself, but I did learn a klal that when you're learning Chassidus, you'll notice that they say the same sentence again, and they change one word, and then they say the same sentence again, and they might change one dot, And when I was first learning Chassidus, I'm like, okay, I got it already. I got it. Why do you keep repeating yourself? Why are you saying it again? And I got it. But when you understand, it's no word is meutal. There's not an extra word here, right? That it's first of all meant to go in layers in your being until it can melt through any resistance, right? Until it can really penetrate your heart. Because we get things on the level of my mind. Yeah, okay, I get it. It's a surah. Got it. You told me it's a surah. Okay, right? And then it's like, but has it reached my insides? Has it reached the level where it's mamish making me into a new person? Like I would never even want that thing because it's so clear to me how much I want to be in alignment. So clear to me, like not clear in my head, clear in my whole being, right? Ki ikar hakriyat shema nitgale al yadam, because the essence of kriyat shema was birthed through them. Ve'al yadei zeh hichniu zuhamat mitzrayim. And how it says, remember we have this claw that the refuah is always given before the makah. The healing, the remedy is always given before the breaking. Always. It's a klal in Torah. And it says this mantra is what subjugated the hold of the Mitzrayim, Egypt, and we mean on a spiritual sense, Egypt, right? Hold on us. This is what saved us. The Shema. Right? We'll say more, please God, in the class. There's just so much more. We'll finish this piece. It's 4 lines. עד שזכו ישראל לעמוד בניסיון בצירוף בהתאווה הזאת ולצאת משם בשלום. And it says that this became so much our mantra that the ikar of Mitzrayim was no borders, right? No borders. Everyone with everyone, right? But because we had the Shema as our mantra, we kept the borders of our names, our dress, our lashon, our speech, right? So that even though everything else was darkness and crushing inside and outside, we were able, ironically, through the mantra of perfect oneness and unity, to hold the borders that allows the perfect oneness to flow through us. Right? As we're saying, Yud Ke Vav Ke, the one light and sound energy, as it flows through the many, right, is only one sound and light current. And it's to bring us back to hearing that, experiencing, not talking about, not reading about, not lecturing about, I'm saying it myself, right? But actually saying it and letting the sound vibrations realign us. We could do a whole Torah, but I'll just say one line right now, that on Yom Kippur, we say Baruch Shem Kavod out loud, right? Because we're in such a level of intimacy after the Kohen Gadol goes into the Kodesh Kadoshim, right? It's like in that state, literally, like we know these places, right? We could get away with saying a wrong word to someone that we're not so close with, right? Because they're not going to be super offended probably, and we'll probably get away with being insensitive on some level. But והמבין יבין. אוקיי. ולקבל את התורה בשבועות בחינת עין פנים לתורה וכנ"ל. And he says, again, this could be a whole class. His one last sentence could be a whole class, but we'll just not make it a whole class. But we'll end here just for now, and please God, I'll do a class later on Zoom. But he says here, and this is what enabled us holding on to the Shema, saying Shema, hearing Shema and sending out those sound vibrations into the world, because that's what we do twice a day, right? Every day. To be clear, we also live inside these vibrations. Why? Why do we live inside these vibrations? Where else do we have Shema in our life? Yes. Our mezuzot. So we are living inside the sound vibrations of the mantra of Shema, from our front door to our back door to our gateways. It's an energetic, the boundaries, it's an energetic force field. And it's a constant meditation that although I might shift from, God bless you, from room to room, from state to state, from story to story, it's all being held in the one vibrational state, right, of the one. Okay, so now this is last line. He says, ironically, again, it's the holding of the Shema that allowed us to receive the Torah on Har Sinai after we got out of Mitzrayim. And he says, on what level? On the level of the 70, the Ayin, Panim, Shivim Panim the Torah, the 70 faces of Torah. So in other words, when we find the unifying thread of sound light of God, right? Every person, there's 70 faces of Torah, but it's all one Torah. Right? But when we touch and hear that core unity, that it's all one sound light current, it's one flow, and we get sensitive to stepping into the flow or stepping out of the flow, then we can be as diverse as we want. We can be as different as we want. And we can express God through whatever way we want, as long as we keep coming back to Yud Kei Vav Kei Elokeinu Yud Kei Vav Kei Echad. Okay, so we'll leave off here for now. Just somebody, remember we always say, Rabbeinu says the ikar of learning Torah is to turn it into tefillah. So would anybody like to take anything they received from these wisdom teachings and for all of us turn it into a Torah, a bracha? No.
I have one. So we say that meditating is prayer is asking of God, and meditating is listening for the answers. So if we do a lot of prayer, and we forget to then be quiet, that the conversation is supposed to be, I talk, you talk, I talk, you talk. And sometimes when the other person talks, we do or don't listen. So my takeaway from this is the prayer is the asking, the meditating is the listening, and in the listening there's still a two-way conversation. Then I'm listening to God for the answers to my prayers, and I'm listening to myself. As Katya said, with the, but are my intuitions correct? Is this what I'm supposed to? So I need to listen to myself and listen to him. And listen to those who are speaking. Thank you.
Thank you.